Good afternoon. I'm Chief Glenn Hudson of Peguis First Nation, and I make $100,000.
I live in a little two-bedroom house, and my basement is so condemned. It's a condemned house. You have a driveway that would have bought me and my friend Tracy a house each for both of all our kids. Your house is just built right up, just beautiful. Your family, your extended family, all on the houses, every one of them got a house. What about it? You promised Willie Rose, you remember Willie Rose? You promised both of you, promised Willie Rose a house. He's getting one. You're going to build him a house and he won't even be able to live in it because he won't be here anymore. Why is it so important for you to have a house before any of your band members?
To let you know, Norma, I do not have a house at all here in Peguis, and
Some shocking numbers have emerged, putting into question the salaries of Peguis First Nation band councillors. According to brown envelope documents delivered anonymously to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, the before-tax incomes of almost every band councillor is more than what our country's Prime Minister makes. The documents appear to be audit reports of the band councillors' salaries and other remuneration for the last 2 fiscal years, including a base salary of $124,000 plus $48,000 in remuneration and other earnings. Peguis Chief Glenn Hudson made over $200,000 in the fiscal year ending in March. And his 4 councillors earned well over $250,000, all tax-free. It's a lot of money for a council managing a community of just 7,200 people. In contrast, Manitoba's Premier made $150,000, Winnipeg's Mayor made $114,000, and our federal MPs make $157,000.
The Peguis Reserve is at the center of this controversy that involves anonymous documents recently delivered to the Canadian Taxpayers Federations. Inside, there were reports showing each member of the Peguis Bound Councils making more money last year than the Winnipeg Mayor or even the Manitoba Premier. Mikhailo Pristupa spoke to the whistleblower in this case. He joins us live this morning from Winnipeg. Mikhailo, who is the whistleblower and why did she send these documents to the CTF?
Well, the whistleblower's name is Phyllis Sutherland. She's with a group called the Peguis Accountability Coalition. She's a concerned band member from the community. These documents that she shared with us and with the Taxpayers Federation show that the chief earned anywhere between $200,000 and upwards of $319,000. She says that amount is outrageous, considering that the community has difficult social conditions, moldy houses, and the Premier of Manitoba earns just $156,000. So this is potentially even double that. When I had a chance to speak with her on the weekend in Peguis First Nation, she said that she's demanding a forensic audit that INAC or the federal government would do. Here's what she had to say.
Last time I was at Indian Affairs, and we were talking about Hudson's salary. And I asked him, where else in Canada can you go get a job and name your own salary, which is basically what he did.
There's a heated debate in Manitoba about how much a politician is being paid. The chief of the Peguis First Nation is responsible for about 7,000 people, but he's paid more than the Premier of Manitoba. And as Mikhailo Pristupa reports, a lot of people are saying something is out of whack.
Peguis First Nation is the most populous reserve in Manitoba, but it also has another distinction. It has some of the best paid band executives around. Financial records showed chief and councillors earned between $206,000 and $319,000 last year. The numbers shocked these elders.
I don't know if this is the truth, but I'm concerned where our money is going. Some pretty poor people are on our reserve.
The leader of Manitoba's largest reserve says he has nothing to hide. Glenn Hudson says his people know they're paying him 6 figures as chief.
I know I put my best foot forward in terms of doing all the work that I do.
Questions about the chief's earnings surfaced after financial documents showed up at the office of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. With travel expenses, the documents show Hudson taking home more than $200,000. Tax-free. But he's not the biggest earner. In fact, he makes less than his councillors. Glenys Sutherland rakes in just over $300,000 with her base pay and travel expenses.
These are fall-off-your-chair numbers. 4 of the 5 council members were making more than the Prime Minister of Canada.
Peguis was best known for its historic land claim settlement of $126 million earlier this year. A settlement Hudson says is proof he works hard. In First Nation communities, wages are set at the local level and generally are not known by outsiders. Ottawa doesn't control the scale, but the government is aware of what leaders make.
No other chief that holds an engineering degree either. And I think if I went on personal practice, I earned probably just as much or even more.
Hudson's quick to point out that he makes less than the previous chief. And he says they've taken steps to address poverty, housing, and health issues in his community.
The Peguis First Nation is the biggest Native community in Manitoba, and as we've been telling you, its band council makes the biggest bucks. Bigger, in fact, than even the premier of the entire province. The man in charge of Peguis First Nation says the controversy is way overblown. Chief Glenn Hudson also calls it a campaign by his political enemies, and the chief joins me now from Winnipeg. Chief, help me to understand why this is overblown.
Well, I guess in terms of making comparisons to the Premier, you certainly cannot do that. I know his base salary, as mentioned, is more than mine, and when it comes down to travel and other perks and benefits, if you add them all up significantly, the Premier would make a lot more than we do as leaders.
Your salary was roughly $175,000 a year. You had other remuneration at $48,000. Boy, that's a heck of a lot of other remuneration. What was that other stuff?
Well, I sit on a lot of boards across the country and even within Manitoba, and a total of 9, as a matter of fact, and we're paid accordingly to attend those board meetings as far as honoraria goes, and that's what that reflects. I guess maybe it's the fact that I'm being too busy and creating more opportunity for us as First Nations.
You know what I want to know, though, is everybody's been scaling back. Everybody's been feeling the pinch.
Yeah.
You know, and yet here you are coming out with a salary that can be mind-boggling for people in your community who are struggling. What do you say to them?
Well, I think those are 2 different issues. I guess as far as scaling back, we have scaled back as of April 1st of 2009, where we put ceiling limits for both chief and council. And I guess when it comes down to people living in conditions that they are, that's what we're out there trying to correct and trying to make better, because it's the federal government that's responsible for those situations when our funding is only 2% increase, and yet our population is beyond 7.5%. Our funding certainly doesn't keep up with the growth of our population.
You got to admit, though, politics is somewhat about optics. Do you think the optics look bad here?
Well, certainly the optics are meant to make us look bad, but I know for a fact that there's no other First Nation leader in Manitoba that has brought $190 million in claims, potential claims back for their community, and I know no other First Nation leader holds an engineering degree like I do, and I guess as far as optics are concerned, that's a matter of opinion on what these levels are, but certainly we are accountable to our people, and we are transparent, and they're fully aware of what we make, and I guess there'll be even opinions within. So.
Yeah, the mayor of Toronto, he deals with, what is it, about 3 million people in Toronto, $166,000 a year. Councillors make $99,000 a year. You had a councillor making $251,000, charged an extra $59,000 in travel expenses. What did you say? Did you say, you know, that's where...
Well, certainly that's the reason why we had reduced those salaries as of April of 2009, and certainly that's some of the former regime, their practices that were in place and that were uncovered, and we have taken steps to address it. So I think we're doing our job in terms of accountability and transparency, and certainly, again, it's a matter of opinion, but you cannot compare apples to oranges here.
So what would be apples to apples?
Apples to apples, I guess the mayor of Toronto, if you include his travel, his perks, his other remuneration for sitting on various committees or boards, I'm sure he collects, and even their pension, which we don't have, it would be substantially higher than what it's listed as their base salary.
Is there any possibility or any thought to putting, you know, further caps now that this is out in the open and you're being criticized for it by, you know, various points? It's not the first scandal to hit your community. How do you deal with it?
Well, I guess as far as taxation goes, in our treaties, we weren't supposed to be taxed, but as treaty people, we do pay taxes. I just want to set that for the record. And when it comes down to taxpayers' money, I guess we don't want taxpayers' money. We want a share of the natural resource wealth of this country, which we opened up for settlement and for treaty. And we want to have that benefit come back to our communities, and that's what we continue to fight for. Unfortunately, you know, it's a matter of opinion when these criticisms do come out, but I'm certainly one not to run from them. We'll address them, but we got to make fair comparisons, yes.
Maybe you need a raise.
Maybe I need a what, sorry?
Maybe you need a raise. All the work you're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of good work that's being done, and I think, like I say, people at home, I think they're happy with the outcome in terms of some of the things that we're bringing back, but certainly there's a lot more work that needs to be done.
There were many preliminary findings and errors in the Aboriginal Affairs original interim letter, and we're seeking to clarify this. I know for a fact that I have not been provided severance from those funds. Where did the money go? Certainly the money has been used for emergency management. It's not being hidden. It's certainly not being, in terms of the spending of it, it's spent appropriately. and maybe the adjusting entry hasn't been completed by the professional accounting firm, that being MNP. It's MNP that is responsible for this. They're a professional accounting firm, and we have some issues that we're addressing with them also. We're considering some of the options as far as dealing with these issues. I'll state also that MNP is no longer our co-manager as of today. We fired them as of April 1st, 2012.
The situation in Peguis is also being probed. Last year, a review by Aboriginal Affairs showed irregularities concerning that Manitoba Reserve's record-keeping and compensation claims for the chief. It's turning into a sad trend, we see. Nicole Dubé is following this from Winnipeg with the latest. Nicole.
Yes, Anita, following various financial controversies with Peguis First Nation, that Peguis First Nation still remains under co-management. As Sun News reported back in March of 2012, a federal auditor found some issues with how $10 million in flood compensation was spent, including questionable payments to chief and council members, poorly documented flood-related project expenditures, and dubious staffing decisions. Included in that audit was what appeared to have been a claim for severance paid to the chief and council, amounting to about $142,000, and also timesheets that were possibly falsified, and even hours paid that hadn't even been worked. As for where this audit case currently stands, I did hear from the press secretary for Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development, Minister John Duncan. The press secretary tells me that with an investigation currently underway, it would be inappropriate for the department to comment any further on that. But in the meantime, Peguis Chief Glenn Hudson, he still remains very well paid in a community of about 7,200 people. It did come to light back in 2010 through a access to information request by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation that chief was one of the among, I should say, the top 6 highest paid chiefs in Canada, earning more than $170,000, higher than some provincial premiers. It even came to light that some councillors were taking home over $240,000. So after that information came to light, there was much pressure on the band council to reform its salaries and what it was paying itself. We do know that the chief has since taken a $30,000 pay cut, but still, even with that said, he's still making $111,000 in annual salary, really? Plus $80,000 in travel-related expenses. He's not alone. There's still band council members still being paid some hefty sums.
But Nicole, what are band members saying about all this? Yeah,
that was my next point. Yeah. There's still much frustration. This is a community that has certainly dealt with a lot of flooding, no question. They've seen flooding virtually almost every spring in recent years. With that said, though, they've received millions and millions of dollars, but people still living in temporary housing. And this is a band that did settle various land claim disputes and currently has over $190 million invested. Yet still, there's some financial issues, and they still have at least reportedly $22 million in debt. So we know that accountability and transparency remains serious issues on this community. And hopefully this audit that's currently underway can get to the bottom of that. Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development Canada had an audit branch conduct a review of how more than $10 million meant for flood mitigation and relief was spent by the Peguis First Nation between 2009 and 2011. The community is about 200 kilometers north of Winnipeg and has roughly 7,200 band members. The audit found that financial controls were not in place and there was poor management of the flood funds. AANDC tells Sun Media that they are taking the matters of fiscal mismanagement very seriously and are looking into the matter. They say if they were to find any criminal activity, they will alert the proper police authorities. Now, the audit findings were leaked to Sun Media, and in a letter sent to the band's Chief Glenn Hudson and the band council members, auditors found that there were serious holes in the money tracking there was also unnecessary spending and concerns over questionable payments made to elected officials. According to the audit, the review found over $140,000 was made in payments and claims to the chief and the 4 elected officials. In fact, the audit concluded that individuals may have been paid for work that was never completed and that money meant for flood relief may have gone to some of the elected officials. The Canadian taxpayer has taken a look at this audit and says that Canadians and taxpayers need answers on how this happened.
Well, it sounds like there's plenty of room for improvement in terms of how public funds are being spent. It sounds like there's not very good control to make sure that dollars meant for flood relief are actually being used on flood-related purposes. So we're going to be looking to the federal government to explain what they're going to be doing about the situation.
Now, Peguis First Nation Chief Glenn Hudson has spoken to Sun News. He says that the audit is incorrect and incomplete and that he is working with Ottawa officials to address the issues raised in the audit. He also insists that he and his council have not received any compensation from flood funding.